All right, good morning. There's only two of you on right now. More may be joining us later. So every time that happens, I get a little alert asking me to let you in. So if necessary, that's what I'll do. All right. As always, I will be taping today's lecture. Let me just ask real quick, either one of you listening, can you hear me okay? All right, we'll try that again. Can either one of you hear me? All right, it says I'm recording. I'm trying to find out if either one of you can unmute your microphones and let me know that you can hear me before I go on. Grant or Aiden, can one of you mute your mics and just let me know if you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. All right, because this has happened a couple times when I think that I'm online with people and I'm not, and I go through a 4-hour lecture and find out nothing was recorded. So that's the reason for me doing that. Okay, all righty. So let me go in and I'm going to jump. All right. Can you see the Muroc book where it says contents right here? Can you both see that?
I can.
Okay. So what I plan on doing today is going over chapter 2 and going over chapter 3. Now I know it sounds like that's a lot of stuff. What you're going to find is much of the material that we cover is the stuff we covered yesterday, but in more depth and breadth of coverage. One of the things that they do in chapter 2, I'm just going to jump ahead for a second to show you this, is they create this program right here. So I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm actually going to add an additional button onto that. But we're going to end up creating this. You're welcome to either code along with me if you want, or to try it later. Again, tomorrow when you come in here, by tomorrow, you will have a copy of the first pretest that I'd like you to try. You don't have to turn it in. All right. Depending on how long this lecture takes today, I may even give you the pretest today. All right. But we will go over it tomorrow. I will give you time to work on it today and tomorrow. But you will have time to work on it at least an hour, if not more. And I will go over it from scratch as though we've done absolutely nothing. All right. So that's what we're doing today and tomorrow. So as we go in today, all right, good morning, Chad. Hopefully you can hear us. We're just starting up. And as I mentioned, we are going to today go through chapter 2, how to design a Windows Forms application, and chapter 3, how to code and test a Windows Forms application. And as I just mentioned to you, what you're going to find out is much of the material that we go over today, we went over yesterday. All right, but it's going to do it in more breadth and depth of coverage than we went yesterday. So let's jump right into chapter 2, how to design a Windows Forms application. Now, one thing about this is, as you probably guess, the authors here are going to show how they would design this form. All right, and by and large, I mean, I've read the chapter, and by and large, I'll probably pretty much agree with what they have done. All right. But there may be times when I do things in a little bit different order, or I do things a little bit differently. And I'm not saying that my way is better than their way, or you have to do things my way, or you have to do things the way they're shown in the book. What you are establishing right now, especially since most of you, this is your first class, is you're kind of establishing your own style. And that may or may not sound important to you. All right. But it actually is important that you start to develop your own style, because there is at least a chance that when you graduate from here and get a job, that you'll get a job as a programmer, maybe even a C# programmer. And depending on the company you work for, they may already have a style that they do everything by. You might have to do things in a certain regimented way. Before I got into teaching, I was a professional programmer for several years. And when I started programming in my job, one of the first things they did was they gave me this manual. It was by that, that was years ago, so it was still hard copy. And it was several hundred pages long. And it was basically, it was a standards manual. So I was kind of a smart aleck, and I said, oh, that's it? And the guy said, no, there's 3 volumes. That's just volume 1. It was over 1,000 pages, the way they wanted things to be done. So right now, it's kind of important that you just develop your own style. All right. Because when you go in and you start showing your work to potential employers, they're going to want to see what your style is and whether or not you'll mesh with whatever the company has. All right. So let's go on. How to get started, how to design a form, and how to finish your design. So as always, I'm going to spend more time on the page that's on the right. Oh, and I'm supposed to tell you this from Patrick Glynn in the registration office. Supposedly sometime today, uh, someone from the Rankin bookstore in St. Louis is driving to Wentzville with all of the C# books. All right. So if you don't have your book yet, Patrick is going to email me as soon as the books are there. And once those books arrive, you'll be able to go to his office, which is at 755 Parr Road in the Carpenter's Hall. Go in there and you'll be able to get your book. Now, I did today, I sent you from the Muroc website, they have PDFs of Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. So I did send you those last night. So if you want to be able to follow along on your own rather than looking at my screen, all right, you can bring those PDFs up because it's basically the same thing that I'm showing right now. All right. So it says there when you get started, it says this is the option dialog box for selecting project options. And you might look at that and say, hey, wait a minute. You've never talked about this before. All right. Well, what it is, and again, I can go back and I can change my window, but I'll do that a little bit later. So rather than constantly changing my window for you and spending a lot of time doing that, I'd rather explain this to you, and then once we get in and we write the program, then I'll show you this. All right. So there should be either an option on the menu that says options, or under tools, there'll be something that says options. And if we go down to location, what this is, just so you know, is what you're telling it right here is where you automatically want to have your projects saved. So unless you tell it otherwise, it'll save it in a location like this. Now, is that a terrible thing? Well, it's kind of deep. It's about 4 or 5 or 6 folders in, and it's kind of hard to figure out what's what. Now, where it says and, of course, that'll be yours. And if your home drive is not the C drive, if it's the D or something else, it'll be that. But it automatically saves it to your documents folder. And underneath there, it'll have a Visual Studio 2022 template, and then it'll save it over there. And if you say, wow, do I have to worry about that? No, because if you save things and set them up the way that I'm showing you, that point will be moot. You'll never have to worry about that. All right. but they do talk in here about changing development settings and the like if you want to. So why would you want to even change those settings? If you remember yesterday when we downloaded the Visual Studio package, that one of the last things that we did was we said the background that we wanted. Maybe you chose dark, but after a while you change your mind and you want light, or vice versa. This is another thing that you can do in those options, is you can go in and you can change settings like that. All right. So for creating a new project, this is nothing new. I'm going to run through the chapter until we get to where they start building the project. And I'm going to run through that in the book here. So I'm going to show these slides, or I should say I'm going to show this document. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to go into Visual Studio and actually build it. But you saw this yesterday when we went in to create a new project. And I mentioned up here in the search box, typically you'll either want to type in console and choose the console for .NET, all right, or Windows Forms, and you'll want to choose the Windows Forms for .NET. Now it looks a little bit different here, all right? It looks a little bit different here because this is 2019, so they've changed the look and feel of it in 2022, which is what we have. All right, and a natural question, because I taught this class last spring and I used 2022, but there was at least one student who said, well, you know, if we wanted to, since in the book they're using 2019, could we just download 2019? And the answer is yes. There really aren't that many changes between Visual Studio Community Edition 2019 and Visual Studio Community Edition 2022. There's a couple changes, but most of them are aesthetic in nature. You know, the verbiage that you see in here and whatever. So it really wouldn't matter which one you use. I just believe in having you use the latest and greatest version of a software package. All right. So when you are configuring your project as they show here, I'm going to recommend that either you create a folder, all right, and you basically set it to that folder, or, all right, actually that is what we'll do, but sometimes we'll create that folder on the desktop. Sometimes we'll create it where I had you go yesterday and work with Git and GitHub and bring that package down. And if you don't understand what I mean, that's what I'm going to show you a little bit later today. All right, so you give the project a name, you give the project a location. By default, the project name and the solution name are the exact same. You can change that. You don't have to do that. All right. There is also a thing here that says place the solution and project in the same directory. All right. And typically it's not going to matter whether that is actually checked or not. I think ours is checked by default, but we'll see later. So they run through the steps here that you have to go through. I just kind of went over those with you. There is more than one way to go in and create and start to create a new project. The way they're showing here is probably the most intuitive and straightforward way of doing it. All right, so they're going to start building on the next page here, this form, and I'm going to build it for you as well in just a moment, but I want to go over what they say here. So it says, before I show you how to add the controls, they want to describe the form itself. You know, it's always kind of nice to start with an end in mind. And if you don't know what I mean, when you take your regular tests, not the first test, because it'll be all console stuff, but basically every test, maybe even that first one, you're always going to kind of have a picture of what your final output should look like. So you'll get something like this with every test. Why? Because it's kind of nice to know what it is you're building before you start to build it. So this is the form they're going to build in here. And I mean, you're all intelligent people. So you can tell this, again, as I mentioned before, this right here will be our form design window. All right. This will be the form text that's right there. There will be 1, 2, 3, 4 different labels right here. There will be 1, 2, 3, 4 different text boxes. Out of those text boxes, the only one where you're going to add anything is this first one. The other 3 are going to be grayed out, like you can see, and that'll mean that they're read-only. All right, we will add 1 extra button in here. And I'm going to move this button over to the left and it'll say calculate. This one I'll leave here, but I'm going to put one in between them that says clear. And the reason for that is if I want to run this program multiple times, so I put 225 in there and I click calculate and I get these results. But now I want to try it again with a different number in there. So if I click clear, what's going to happen is that will clear out, that will clear out, that will clear out, that will clear out, and our cursor will be flashing right there in that text box. So that's what we have to look forward to. And as they mention in here, a text box is going to be used for us to put in a subtotal. These text boxes are used to hold either information that the user wants to input or information that the user wants to output. These labels that you see right here are, for lack of better words, they're headings for each of these particular text boxes. And the buttons, for now at least, that's where we're going to add our code so that when we click calculate after we put that in, this happens. When we click clear, what happens, what I just told you. And with exit, we're going to basically ask the user if they want to exit. And if they do, we're going to let them exit. All right. Now, I pretty much explained everything that's in here. And I believe I pretty much explained everything that's in here. And I don't know about you, but, and I've mentioned this to you probably already yesterday, I don't want to sit here and read to you. All right. So that's why with a lot of the textual stuff that you'll see right here, I might read a sentence or so, but I've taken classes like this where the instructor will read the whole page to you. And to be honest with you, I feel a little bit, I don't even know what the right word is, but not happy. Because it's like, hey, I can read. Just tell me to follow along, etc. So what I'm going to do is the first thing is I'm going to start up Visual Studio. Now you won't see that on here. You probably don't see it. It's starting up right now, but I am going to come in here and I'm going to stop sharing and start another share. And the other share I start will be Visual Studio. So I'm going to assume a few things here. And if I'm wrong, you'll have to tell me. All right. So I'm assuming that right now you can see my Visual Studio 2022 window right here. I'm assuming that, and I'm assuming if you can't, you're going to say something. All right. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to create this project that we just saw in our book. All right. I'm going to create that same project that is in your book. Whoops, doggone it. The same project that is in your book on page 39. Okay. All right. So let's see here. There we go. All right. So the first thing I want to do is I want to say that I want to create a new project. So I'm going to go grab this option here for create a new project, and I'm going to click it. All right. This particular project is going to be a Windows form application. You can see on my screen, or hopefully you can, when you look over here, these are the 2 types of projects that I created yesterday. So it remembers. Yours may show these, yours may not show these if you did the projects with me yesterday. But let's pretend yours doesn't show this. So I'm going to again come into my search box here and I'm going to type in Windows Forms. And immediately this changes and I only get
sharing it.
Pardon?
Is it? I don't think it's sharing it.
All right, then let's double check. Is it sharing it now?
Okay, it's sharing now. Yeah.
All right, so let's just we'll back up. That's totally fine. So when you first start up Visual Studio, And Grant, I know you just came in, just so you know, we're going over chapter 2 and 3 today, and I'm up to page 39, and I'm going to build in your text the application that's shown on page 39. I'm going to build it for you right now. So I've just started up Visual Studio 2022. I'm right here. All right. And I'm going to go to create a new project. And again, if you went through this with me yesterday, it may already be showing here Windows Forms app, .NET Framework C#, and Console app, .NET Framework C#. But whether it is or not, I can still search by clicking in the search box and typing in Windows Forms. You want to make sure when you do that, you always choose the one that says .NET Framework. What that does is it adds some extra system files that you're going to need in order to be able to do the program. So not only do you want to choose Windows Forms app .NET Framework, but you want to make sure you choose the one that says C#, because if you look down here, there's another Windows Forms app, but it's Visual Basic. We don't want that. This is a C# class. So we want to choose the Windows Forms app .NET Framework. I can either click here, then click next, or I can double click on here. They both have the same effect. They both get you to this configure your new project dialog that's right here. All right, so now it's going to ask me, where do I want to save this? All right, it's going to ask me, where do I want to save this? Well, I didn't do it previously, but I'm going to quickly, and you won't see me do this, but I'm going to go and bring up a window in my desktop, and I'm going to create a new folder in there that I'm just going to call Invoice Total. One word, capital I, little n, V-O-I-C-E, capital T, little o, T-A-L. So I just created an empty folder on my desktop that is called Invoice Total. All right, why did I do that? Because I'm going to call this right here, I'm going to call, for my project name, I'm going to call this Invoice Total GUI, Graphical User Interface. All right, and for my solution name, I'm going to get rid of the GUI, and I'm just going to call it Invoice Total. But where do I want to put this? All right, where do I want to put this? I want to click here under Browse, and then I want to choose Desktop. And I realize you probably can't see that, but it's okay. And then double click on Invoice Total and choose Select Folder. I could have also manually typed that in if I knew the path. So what have I done so far? I have set my project name to Invoice Total GUI. I have set my location path to the brand new folder I just created on my desktop, and I set my solution name to Invoice Total. I can uncheck that or check it. It really probably doesn't matter, but I just can leave the default. And the framework, well, you'll notice we're at 4.72, and I guess 4.8 is the newest. I just am going to accept the defaults in here. That's what I do all the time. I've never had a problem with that. So after doing all that, I'm going to click Create. That's going to come in, and it's going to spin its wheels a little bit, and there it is. Hopefully you see my Visual Studio window right now, and I'm moving the mouse around in a little circular manner, but hopefully you can see that, and if you cannot see it, you're going to let me know. All right. So what you see
right now?
Can you see it?
Not right now.
All right, then let's double check. This is, like I said, this is one of the reasons I'm not a big fan of using Microsoft Teams. So let's see. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
All right. So remember from yesterday, this is our toolbox. If you come up and the toolbox isn't showing, you can click View, and about halfway down, you'll find Toolbox. You click that, and then it'll show. If it looks like this, where it's showing over here, all right, you can click that little stick pin that's up there, and that's basically that'll allow you to make this as big and as wide as you want, and you can still see your entire form. Of course, if I made it that big, you couldn't, but you get the idea. So here's my toolbox. Here's my Windows design area. Down here later, I'll make a couple mistakes on purpose so you can see the error window that'll come down here. Then over here, and I'm widening this out, this is my Solution Explorer, and this is my Properties window. And you can click in here and make this bigger, smaller, etc. on an as-needed type of basis. All right. Typically, I don't make this window, my Solution Explorer, any bigger than I have to, but that's a judgment call on your part. So when we started, we named our solution Invoice Total, and that's what this says. We named our project Invoice Total GUI, and that's what this says. This file that you see right here is form1.cs. Now you'll notice that a bunch of these have arrows by them. If I click the arrow by form1.cs, it shows what's called the designer file. All right, if I double click on that, this is one of those system files that normally you're not going to want to monkey with. As you start putting stuff onto your form, the stuff will be put into this file as well. I'm not saying you can't play with this file and do things, but especially when you're first starting, if you're not sure of what you're doing, playing with that file can result in basically you locking up your program. And if it gets to be that bad a point where it's totally locked up, then typically what happens is you got to start over. There's no magic way to fix it, is what I'm telling you. All right. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do a couple things. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to single click on where it says form1.cs. This is the same thing I did yesterday. All right, so I clicked on it to highlight it. I left mouse clicked, and now I'm going to right mouse click on it, and I'm going to choose rename. And rather than calling that form1.cs, I'm going to call it FRM invoice total.cs. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do just so you know. When I get totally done with the lecture today, I'm going to take this particular project that I'm doing for you right now. I'm going to zip the folder and I'm going to email the completed project to everybody. And then you should have a finished copy. And if you want to try it yourselves, you can actually bring up two Visual Studios at the same time, and you can have mine up and you can look at it and then try to duplicate it if you think that'll help you at all. So I've changed the name from form1.cs to FRM invoice total.cs. When I hit enter, I get immediately asked, it says that you are renaming this. Do you want to rename every instance of it, including what's inside of our system files? And you always want to say yes here. So that changed the name of this from form1.cs to FRM invoice total.cs, and it changed the name of this from form1.designer.cs to FRM invoice total.designer.cs. All right, that's the only thing I've changed so far. The next thing I want to do is I want to click on the form again, and I want to change where it says form 1 here. I want that to just say invoice total. So I go down in here. Remember, this is my properties window, and I want to find where it says text, and it's down towards the bottom, and I'm changing this to invoice total, and there it's done. All right, and it's changed up here as well. Now, to build my interface, if you remember this, what I want here is I want 4 labels, 4 text boxes, and I'm going to put 3 buttons, even though they show 2 in the book. Now, I don't like the way that gray comes out here, so I'm going to click on my form again. I'm going to go in my properties window to back color. I'm going to click the square. Then I'm going to click the down arrow and the custom, and I'll just pick the light purple. All right. Now, sorry if that bugs you. I don't like them to be gray like that. I've had people tell me in the past that when you start putting buttons and other stuff on the form, it gets very hard to read. All right. So I'm going to right now build the interface. And I'm going to show you a way of building it that's probably a little different than I did it yesterday. Why? Because I'm trying to show you what I consider to be the easiest way for me to build this. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to and grab a label, drag it over and let go. Now, one thing that's weird about labels, I want you to know this. It's not that you have to write it down or anything because you're going to experience it every time you work on a project. And that is labels cannot be resized. So I want to make this bigger. It's not letting me. So how do I make it bigger? You've got to go over your properties window and there is an auto size property for your label that's set to true. To size it, rather than setting it to true, I don't know why Microsoft did this, but you have to actually set it to false. Now I can resize this label. So I can make it as big as I want it to be. All right. So now I have one label. And the first thing I'm going to do is I want that label, the text in there to be bigger. All right. So I'm going to, with this highlighted, I'm going to go down and I'm going to find there's a property here called font. And notice if I click the font property, if I just click on that plus sign there, it says right now I'm using a sans serif font that's 8.25 points. And if I click here on the ellipsis, the three dots, you maybe have seen something like this before. This is a way that I can come in and change my font style, and my font size. And I'm going to change all of them right now. So I'm going to go up for my font. I'm going to go up near the very top and I'm going to choose Arial. And I'm going to make it bold just because it's easier to read. And for the size, I'm going to make it 18 point. All right. And I'm going to click OK. And you can see how that's changed. All right. So that was the first thing that I did. And if you remember, I want 4 labels. Right now I have 1. I haven't even named it yet, but I want 4 of these. So I could go through and do all that stuff I just did all over again, but sorry, that's a waste. So I'm going to click on this label to highlight it. I'm going to do a Control C to copy and a Control V to paste. Now I've got a second label, and I'm going to make 2 more. Now, I'm going to assume that when I did that, I did it too fast. So I'm going to remove this and this and this. Hopefully you were able to follow along and at least understand that to change this, I clicked on the label, I went over to font, I clicked on it, clicked on the ellipsis, and changed my font style, my font style, and my font size, and then clicked OK. So a natural question is, hey, do we have to do that? No, but it makes your program easier to read by making the text on your controls bigger, at least in my opinion. All right. So after you've done that, then to copy these, with the label highlighted, I just do a Control C for copying and a Control V to paste, and I'll move it right underneath. And you see I get these lines here. They're trying to help me line things up. And I'm going to do another Control V and line that up, and another Control V, and I'm going to line that up. Now, by no means is what I just did perfect. I get that. If I decided I want this to go down a little, I can lasso them by drawing that invisible box around them and then just move them down a little bit. If I want to do that, do I have to do that? No, but I'm just showing that to you. All right. So now I have 4 labels. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is I want to add 4 text boxes. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to find the text box, drag and put that out there. All right. I want that to be bigger. And I'm going to do the same kind of thing I just did. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to go over to font, click on it. Again, I'm going to choose Arial, and I'm going to choose bold, and I'm going to choose 18 point. And you can see it automatically made this bigger. All right. So now again, I'm going to do a Control C to copy, a Control V to paste. So there's my second one. There's my third one. And there's my fourth one. You can see that the interface is coming together. By no means will this be a perfect or a beautiful interface, but it'll be functional. And that's what we're looking for. All right. So the last thing I want to do is I want to add 3 buttons. So I'm going to come up here in my toolbox and I'm going to find the button. I'm going to drag it down and I'm going to do the same thing I did before. In that, I'm going to click on this. I'm going to go and set this to Arial, to bold, and to 18 points. So I've got that. Well, you can see that was it. I need to make it bigger now. So there. Now again, I'm going to do a Control C to copy and a Control V to paste. And another Control V to paste again. There is my completed interface. It by no means is it beautiful, but again, it's highly functional. This is a little wider than it has to be, so I'm going to click on the form and just narrow it down just a little bit. So there it is. As I showed you yesterday, now I'm going to come in. You can click on any control. I'm just going to click on this button, and then I'm going to do a Control A because that highlighted every one of my controls. They're all highlighted now. And then I'm going to right mouse click on here and choose Lock Controls. Now my interface is locked in place. It cannot be moved. Did I have to do that? No. But again, it's just going to make it look a little nicer, act a little nicer, etc. All right. So I'm assuming again that this is what we're doing. We're building this project. Before I go and add any code, the first thing you should always do after you build your interface like this is to rename your controls. All right. And these controls, I just got to go back and look at the picture here. This one is going to say subtotal. And I like to call it pretty much what it is. So I'm clicking on label 1. I'm going to go up to the top where it says name in my properties window right here. And labels, you should start with LBL for label. So I'm going to call this LBL subtotal, just like that. And I'm going to change the text from label 1 to subtotal. And I'll put a colon on the end. So now I've got one of my controls done. All right. You can go and rename all of these, then do these, etc. Or you can do it kind of the way I do it, because now I did the label. Now I'm going to do the text box. Since that was called LBL total, text boxes start with TXT. This was LBL subtotal. So this will now become, for its name, TXT subtotal. All right. And I don't have to put any text in there. I'm leaving it empty. So I now have renamed 2 of my controls, this label and this text box. All right. The next label should say discount percent. This one should say discount percent. I can already tell this is not going to be wide enough to hold discount percent. So I'm going to have to change it, and I'll do that in a minute. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to change the name of it to LBL discount with a capital D, percent with a capital P. All right. Now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change the text to discount percent with a colon. And you can see, wow, it doesn't show all of it. It is there, but I didn't make this wide enough. So how do I fix that? Well, I'm going to highlight all of these. I'm going to highlight all 4 of my text boxes. I'm going to right mouse click and I'm going to choose lock, which will unlock them. And I'm going to move these over. All right. Then I'm going to highlight all of these and I'm going to move these over. Oops, try it again. And you can see it now looks, and it will now hold all of it. So far I have renamed, and it's probably going to be a good idea to go back and lock these again after I've done this. So now I've come in here and I have changed that label's name and value, that text box's name, that label's name and value. So now I'm going to do this text box, and I'm going to call this one TXT discount percent. The names don't have to be the same with one LBL and one TXT, but it sure as heck makes it easier when you're trying to find things and you're putting in code, etc., to do it that way. So that's what I would highly recommend. This next one, this third label, says discount amount. So I'm going to call this LBL discount amount. I'm going to change the text on it to discount amount with a colon on the end. And I'm going to go over to here and I'm going to change the name of this text box to TXT discount amount. All right, so now these two, and these two are done. The last one that's in here, it says total. So I'm going to call this LBL total. And I'm going to change the text in here to total with a colon. Whoops. Total with a colon. Now, some people get very anal about this stuff. And what I mean is, some people look at this and say, you know what? I don't like these. I want these to be right justified, and I want to push them all the way over to the end. If you want to do that, you can highlight all of them by drawing that box around them. All right. Then with all four of them highlighted, you could do it individually, but I'm going to do all four at once. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to find text aligned, and it says top left. If I click on it and click again, it looks kind of ugly, but what I want is center right justified. So if I choose that one, if you like that better, you can do that. It's not going to matter. I like there to be some consistency in what you do, because again, I have had people that have gone in for job interviews where the prospective employer has said, bring some of your code in so I can look at it. Or they want it on a flash drive, or they want your GitHub repository or whatever. All right, so let's finish these, then we're taking our break. So we now have that LBL total. I'm going to change the name of the text box to TXT total. And I'm going to change the name of my buttons. This first button right here, I'm going to change the name of it to BTN calculate. Calculate. I'm going to change the text on it to calculate. The second one is going to be named BTN clear. And the text on it will be clear. And the third one is going to be BTN exit. And the text on it will be exit. Now, I can run this if I want to, but it'll do absolutely nothing. I will be able to put stuff in here if I want to. All right, but I don't care about that yet. I'm going to do a file and a save all. All right, and it is just about 8:50. So we're going to take a break right now. All right, and I'm going to come back at 9 o'clock. I'm going to do some aesthetic things right here. Then we're going to write the code for each one of these buttons. All right, I'm going to refill my water, so I'll be back in a couple minutes, but we will resume at 8:50. All right, I'm back. Hopefully you are as well. And hopefully you can see my screen and you can see the program we've been working on. If for some reason you cannot, please somebody give me a quick yell and let me know, okay? But I have now gone in here and I have set up my form. I have put all my controls on the form. I have put the controls in the position where I want them to be. And I have also renamed the controls and then locked my interface. All right. What I do next, the order in which I do what I'm about to do is totally up to you. But one thing that we did not talk about yesterday that I want to mention now is something that's called the tab order. And if you say, I don't know what that means, what I'm going to do here quickly is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to run the program. So I'm going to come in here and run the program. So I'm going to click right here. And you may or may not be able to see my program run. I don't know how that works on here, but it's right here in the middle of the screen. All right. And I'm going to start hitting my tab key. And guess what? My tab order right now is the way I want it to be. In other words, if as I keep hitting the tab key, I want it to go here. But these fields are really right now, when you look at it, if I'm right here, so if I type something in here, but if I'm here and I hit tab, I'm going to go to here. If I hit tab again, I'm going to go to here. If I hit tab again, I'm going to go to here. If I hit tab again, I'm here. If I hit tab again, I'm here. And if I hit tab again, I'm here. When you worry about the order of tab order, labels don't get a tab order. They might have a number, but you can't tab to them anyway. So why am I telling you this? Well, what if I had put the buttons on there first, and then I put my labels in there, and then I put my text boxes when I built this? Well, then my tab order would be wrong. So what I'm going to show you quickly is how I can change the tab order to make it the way I want it to be. I'm going to do one more thing first, and that is this text box and this text box and this text box. These three bottom text boxes should be read-only. So I'm drawing that lasso around them to highlight them. I'm going down to here and I'm finding the property that says read-only. And notice it's set to false. There's two things I can do here. I can click on it, click on the down arrow, and click true, and it turns them gray. Or I can just double click on the word true and change it to false, or on the word false and change it to true. I don't have to keep them gray, but I can. All right, so now these are read-only fields. Okay, so to change the tab order, I want it to go from here first to this one, then to here, then to here, then to here. And that's not the current tab order. So to change the tab order, I'm going to take my cursor and I'm going to put it where I want it to be, which is here. And then under view on my menu, all the way down, almost at the bottom, about 90% or 80% of the way down, there's a thing that says tab order. And I'm going to click it, and it puts numbers by all these things. And I want these to be 0, 1, 2, 3. Those are the ones I care most about. So when I click on this, it becomes 0, then 1, then 2, then 3. All right. And I am going to set these. So I'm going to put a 4, a 5, and a 6 here. These don't really matter, but I always set them anyway. So 7, 8, 9, 10. So now I've set my tab order, but those numbers are still there. And they stay there until you do another view tab order. So now it's set. So if I go back and run the program again, what you should notice, it might be kind of hard for you to see this, but when I run the program again, try it again, I missed that. There we go. All right, there's my cursor right there. As soon as I hit tab, it goes to this button. When I hit tab again, it goes to that button. When I hit tab again, it goes there. When I hit tab again, it goes to here. But this is read only, so I cannot type in any of these. But that's fine. So my tab order is now the way I want it to be set. All right. So what else do I want to do? Well, I mentioned this to you yesterday, so I'm going to say it again today. I'm going to click on the form itself, and I'm going to change three things. The first thing is my accept button. So when I hit the enter key, I want the calculate button to be my accept button. When I hit the escape key on my keyboard, I want that to clear. So I'm going to click, again, a blank spot on the form. I'm going to go to where it says accept button right there. I'm going to click on it, click the down arrow, and choose BTN calculate. So now that's set. Then I'm going to go down to cancel button, click there, and choose BTN clear. Finally, I'm going to come back down to the almost the very bottom and find start position. I'm going to click on that and choose that, change that to center screen. Now, it's always a good idea if you make some changes to do a file save all, and I'm going to run the program again. And now you can see it's right in the middle of my screen. That's what I want. All right. So everything, and my cursor is right there. So everything is good right now. So the only thing left to do is to put in the code for my calculate button, then to put in the code for my clear button, then to put in the code for my exit button. The way that you put these in is totally up to you, the order in which you put them in. I like to just double click on the first button to open up that code window, then close it. Oops, well, back again, try that again. And then double click on my second one. All right, and then finally, double click on the third one. So these have all been open now. The order in which you put in this code, as you probably guessed, doesn't matter. It's your call as far as the order in which you put this in. But let's, for a minute here, let's play computer. All right. And what I mean by that is what I want to have happen here is if I come in here and run the program and put in 100, this discount percent is always going to be 10%. All right, so we'll fix that in a minute. But I want that to be 100. When I run the program, I want that to be 10%. When I click calculate, it should take that 100, multiply it by 10%, say that my discount amount is $10, and instead of my subtotal, where my subtotal was 100, my total should be 90. We'll do that in just a minute, because that's the hardest one to do. So we'll do that last. We could do it first, but I'm going to do it last. When I click the clear button, I want 5 things to happen. I want whatever is in there to clear, 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 and I want the cursor to be right there. So I'm going to do that one first because it's the easiest one to do. So I'm going to come in here and say whoops, I want it lowercase, txt, and the name of the first field was subtotal. So if I type in txts, you see this thing coming down here in blue. This is called IntelliSense. I can click on it, or I can easiest is to just hit the tab key. And I want to say that dot text, I want to set it equal to nothing. Just to show you that that worked and to show you what that did, I'm going to do a file save all, and I'm going to run the program again. Now I'm going to come in here and just type some garbage in here. And then I click clear, you can see how it cleared. All right, that's a big thing. So I'm clearing out that text box. I want to do txt discount percent dot text, and I'm going to set that equal to nothing. That's called the empty string. Then txt discount amount dot text, and I'm going to set that equal to the empty string. And finally, txt total dot text, I'm going to set that equal to the empty string. And to put the cursor back by this field right here, that field, I say txt subtotal dot focus. Now, depends on how anal you are about this stuff, but notice if I put this like this and I hit enter, all right, it worked. But sometimes when you set this stuff up, if you want everything to line up, it won't line up because it'll automatically just put one space there and one space there. So if you do want everything to line up, you've got to manually go in and do that. If there's a tool to do that, I've never found it. All right, so that's all my clear stuff. So again, that is setting each one of these text fields to the empty string. That's what those 4 lines are doing. So that is setting that to an empty string or nothing, and that, and that, and that. And the last line that's in there that sets the focus, that is saying that we want the cursor to be right there when we get done. All right. Now it's going to look very similar to the way it just looked before, but I am going to do a file save all, and I'm going to run it. Now I can put some junk in here, and I'm going to click inside. So I'm clicked on this one right here. Remember, these are read only, so I can't put anything in any of these. But I can click clear, and there's my cursor, and it cleared. I can also do this, come over to here, and instead of clicking clear, you can see my mouse over here. Since I set that to my cancel button, I can hit escape. So that's all working right now. That's good. Every bit of that is now working. That's exactly what I wanted to have happen. All right. So this morning, after I sent you the message with the link on it, I sent you another email, and it had a couple of lines of code in it. All right. And whoops, I want to, hopefully I didn't lose you right there. If I did, you'll have to let me know. But I want to grab that code. It's about 5 or 6 lines, but I always forget it. I don't know why, but I just do. All right. So the code that I'm going to put into the exit button is right here. Do I still have you on there? Can you still see my screen? Anybody?
Yeah, I can still see it.
Okay. What this is going to do is it's going to bring up one of those message boxes that you saw yesterday. And the text on that message box will say, do you really want to exit ? The title of that message box will be exit now with a question mark. It will have a yes button and a no button on it. And the icon will be a question mark. So I'm going to run that in a minute. And when we do that, if I say yes, it'll tell it to quit the program. If I say no, it'll do absolutely nothing. So I'm going to do a file, save all, and I'm going to run the program again. I don't have to put anything in here, but I'm going to click exit. And it says, exit now, do you really want to exit? If I say no, I stay in the program. If I say yes, I've exited. I will tell you that literally 100% of the time when I write GUI programs in here, I'm going to use this. That's why I sent that to you today. You can customize it. So if you don't like the message, do you really want to exit and exit now? You can put something else in there, etc. All right. But I would keep the yes, no for the buttons. I would keep the question for the icon because you are asking a question. And I would keep the if statement in there. This if statement again says if you clicked the yes button, exit the program. Now, yesterday when we exited, we said this.close, and we could have done that here too. What's considered to be the more standard way of stopping your program running is to say application.exit. How did I find that out? I Googled it. All right. So I now have in here, I've got all this done. I've got my clear button done, and I've got my exit button done. So the only thing left for me to do is to put in the code for my calculate button. And I'm going to do that right now. All right. Now I want to take a quick look here. Let's see. Okay, that does say 10% there, and that's got dollar signs. Okay, that's all fine. The first thing that I want to do in my calculate button is what I put there is always 10%. That value is never going to change. The discount percent is 10%. How do I know that? They said that in the book. All right. So I could go in and I could put that in there and just put in 10%. That's totally fine. What do I mean? I can do this. I just want to show you this. I can say TXT discount percent equals, and I could come in here and I could say, let's see, 0.1 dot toString and tell it that I wanted it to be a percentage. All right. Why did I do that? Why did I show you that? First of all, it's giving me an error, so it doesn't like something that I'm doing here. So let's see. It says turns exceptions cannot convert type string to text box. Oh, it's because that's dot text. Okay. Now, what did I just do? I'm going to run the program to show you what I just did. Then I'm going to come back to this. All right. So let me do a file, save all, and let me start the program. All right. Well, I'm surprised. I thought it was going to put a 10% in there and it didn't do that. So let's see if we can figure that out. TXT discount percent dot text equals this, which is 10%. I wonder if this has to be the number 10. 10 dot toString as a percentage. Okay, see if it likes that. Okay, it didn't like that either. So you might say, okay, well, you're doing it wrong all the time. What's the problem? Problem is this isn't the way you should do it. I was trying to hard code it in there and I wouldn't typically do it like that. What I want to do is get rid of that right now. And up at the top of my program, which is really right here, right before my BTN calculate, so right underneath where it says initialize component, I want to come down here and I want to create something you haven't seen before. And that's something that's known as a constant. So its value will never change. Its value must remain constant throughout the life of the program. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and say const decimal. And I'm just going to say, what is it? That was the discount amount. Typically, you make these all uppercase. So I'm just going to call it disc amount. And I'm going to set that equal to 0.1. And it's giving me an error. Why is it giving me an error? For some reason, the people who run Microsoft decided that when you make a variable of type decimal, you've got to put the letter M at the end. And if you say, what does M stand for? I'm not sure. All right. But now I've got a thing in there that says DISC amount. All right. So what I'm going to try to do now is I'm going to try to come back in here and say TXT discount percent dot text equals discount amount dot toString. But I do want that as a percentage. So I put a P there. Now let's see if it takes that. And if it still doesn't, well, we're going to just go on. I'm trying to figure out why it's, oh, I've got to click the button first. There it is. All right, well, I don't want to have to click the button first. As soon as the program runs, boom, I want that to be 10%. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So now it doesn't show 10% until I click the button. That was the problem I was having before. All right, so what I want it to do is as soon as this form loads into memory, I want this to put 10.00 with a percent sign. So what do? Well, I don't want to put it into my buttons click event. I don't want to put it into my clear, or I don't want it in my calculate button click event. I don't want it in my clear button click event. I don't want it in my exit button click event. I want it when the form loads. So I'm going to double click in an empty area of the form, and notice it brings up my form's load event. Now I'm going to paste that in. Now you'll notice that as soon as I run the program, it has the 10% in there. I can't change this because it's a read-only field. I can't change it, but it's in there now. So now I've got 10%. So now I've got that one done. And you know that I'm going to want to take whatever I put in here. All right, I'm going to want to take whatever I put in here, multiply it by that, and put that amount here, and then take that amount, subtract it from that amount, and put that there. That's the rest of my program. So that's what I'm going to do for you right now. All right. And in order to do that, I'm going to create some what are called variables. And what are variables? They're going to be the numeric things that we're going to end up putting in here and in here. So I'm going to have one numeric variable I'm going to create called discount amount, and another one I'm going to create called total. All right. And you might say, oh, fine, why do you have to have variables? Because when you put stuff in here, anything that you put in here, all right, automatically goes in as text. Even if I put the number 100 in there, it's not the number 100. It's the text string 100, and it has no numeric value. All right. And if that doesn't make sense, again, we're going to be going over that more a little later, starting today, and we're going to go over it a little bit more in future chapters. All right. So let me come back to here, and I'm going to create three variables. So I'm going to say decimal amount, and I'm going to set that equal to, all right, whatever I put into that text box. So txt, what was it? Subtotal dot text, but I want to convert that because right now it's trying to take a string value and it's trying to put it into a number value. First thing, I'm going to make this subtotal. All right, but I want to convert that. And it says you can't convert a string to a decimal. It doesn't work unless you run a special method that's called convert dot to decimal. And then you put that in there. All right. Now, I don't expect everything I'm doing here to make sense. I really and truly don't. I'm going to put an error in my program right now. I'm going to save this and run it. I'm going to get an error. The error is right here, right there. I left the semicolon off on purpose. So I'm going to do a file, save all, and I'm going to run this. And it comes up and it says there were build errors. Do you want to continue and run the last successful build? Virtually 100% of the time when that happens, click no. All right. But you can see this right there. It's giving me that. And it's saying it expected a semicolon. So if I come in and just put in the semicolon, now I have no errors. All right. So I've now done that. I need another decimal value. And that's going to be my discount amount. And I'm going to set that equal to my subtotal. And I'm going to multiply that by that value that I put way up here that I showed you before. This thing, DISC amount. All right. So I've got that. And I also need my, another decimal. And this is going to be my discount total. And that is going to be equal to my subtotal minus my discount amount. All right. I'm going to go back and go over all these in just a second. All right. But what I want to show you is this. Okay. Now I've got all my math done. But what I want to do is I want to go in and I want to put in here what they showed us is this is the way that they wrote it. This is not formatted. This has got the percent sign. You've already seen it. This should have a dollar sign in it, and so should this. So I'm going to format those right now so they have that stuff in there. So I'm going to say txt. The subtotal is fine. So I want my discount amount dot text to be equal to my discount amount dot toString. And what's that toString thing? I'm going to go over that in a second, but I want to tell it I want that to be currency. And then I want to do the same thing with my percentage. And I want that to be currency. All right. And believe it or not, I may have missed something, but we'll see in a second. I think we're done. So I'll come back and discuss it in just a moment, but let me do a file save all here and let me run it. Now there could be errors in here. I don't know. So 100, calculate. All right. You can see I've got my discount amount, $10, but I put that in the wrong place. That should be in total, and I put it in discount percent. So I just got to fix that. So this is TXT total right here. All right, let's run it again. Always test it at first with simple numbers. So 100, calculate, got 10 bucks off, and it's 90. If I click clear, I didn't want to clear that one. I shouldn't have cleared that, so that's on me. I'll have to fix that. So let's fix that right now. So when I clear, I don't need to clear my percentage. It's always 10%. All right, so let me run this again. 100, and remember, I can just hit enter. There it is. I can hit the escape key. That clears it. How about 1,000? All right, and it looks like it worked. How about 10,000? And you'll notice not only does it put the dollar sign in there and the 0.00, it puts the comma in there. So this is looking pretty good right now. So let's go back over and look at all of the text, all of the code that we put in for the entire program from the top. All right. Notice we're not using this stuff here that's in gray, so I can get rid of it. I could keep it. It doesn't hurt anything to keep it. This is my namespace. In other words, this is the name of my project. All right. This is the name of my form. And without getting into too much detail, because I don't want to confuse you, this says that FRM invoice total is a child of the form class. And if you don't get that, please don't let it bother you at all. All right. This right here has got the same name. That name is the same name as this. This is what we want to have run when the program starts. A routine called initialize component. All right, what that's going to end up doing is it's going to end up running in here, my program. You don't have to worry about all that right now. I'm just trying to go through with you kind of what's going on in here. This was my constant. So I put in there, you'll notice, I went in there and put in a comment. A one-line comment is you put in 2 forward slashes, and anything that follows the 2 forward slashes to the right to the end of that line is a comment. All right. So I'm going to put in here program constant, and I can put in here another comment. Oops. Discount amount 10%. Okay. All right. So this is the code right here. I'm just going to put some comments in here so you can see what's going on. This is the code that runs when the calculate button is clicked. So all of the code that you see right here, that's the code that runs. All right. So what are we doing here? Well, the first thing we're doing is we are declaring variables. And we declare 3 of them, as you see. We create a variable for the subtotal. All right. We create a variable that's the first number that we put in. We create a variable for the discount amount, which is that subtotal times 10%. And we create a variable for the actual discount. The one was the discount amount here, and the discount total, I may have misspoken, is the subtotal minus that discount amount. So again, when we ran this, this ended up being 100. This ended up being 100 times 10%, which gave us $10. This ended up being 100 minus that $10, so it gave us the $90. All right. And this, I'll just say, fill up text boxes. Okay, not the greatest comments, but I'm putting something in there so you can see what's happening all the time. And not only am I filling up the text boxes, but they're formatted as currency. That's what this C in here means. We'll get into this in a later chapter. All right, but C means currency. If I wanted it to just be a regular number, I could put an N in there. Earlier for the percentage, you may or may not remember. At least I thought I did. Oh, in here, we made that a P for percentage. So there's different ones that you can use in there when you're doing this. Okay, remember that this discount amount is a number. And I'm telling the system, hey, since it's going into that box, convert it into a string and make it of type currency. All right. Then for our clear routine, this will clear out all 4 text boxes. And then this will set the focus, in other words, the cursor, to the first text box. All right. And then finally, our edit, or our exit, I should say. This will query user to see if she or he wants to end program. If answer is yes, end program. And that is everything. So this runs when the form loads into memory. All right. Form loading into memory. Now remember, I'm going to put another comment in here. So I could put another one of these, or when I put this in, I can put a /* and now it can be a multiple line comment. Notice if I put in this, and now I can put this in over, if I want to, multiple lines, but it has to end with a */. So I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to say here, form loading into memory, and hit enter again. Set discount percent text box value to 10.00%. All right, and that's the entire program. So I'm going to go back to the book, but before I do, let me just ask, is there anything that I've done in here after I've gone over it that doesn't make any sense? Anybody, please ask if you've got questions. This is not the only way to write this program. You know, I could probably come up with 4 or 5 different ways of writing it, but they'd all be variations of this way. All right. And I'm not saying that, you know, my style and the way I write it is the best way to write it. I try to write it in the most intuitive way that I possibly can because I want it to make sense to you. All right. So not hearing anything, I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to change my sharing so it goes back to the book again. No, that's not what I wanted. Hopefully I'm at the right one now. Can you see it on the screen right now? Can you see the picture in the book from page 39 of the invoice total form? Anybody?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, so this is what we just built. Mine looks virtually the same as the one in here, except for the following differences. I added a clear button. I change the background color of the form. All right. And I write justified these fields. Other than that, it's virtually the same one. This also gave me the chance to go over with you tab order. All right. Setting the cancel button, setting the accept button, setting my Windows start position. All right. So a couple of the things, and believe it or not, some of that stuff isn't mentioned in our textbook until very much later in the book, and I don't know why they do that. All right. So let's jump ahead. How to add controls onto the form. Well, I just showed you that. Remember, there's different ways of doing it. Typically, you can double click on any control and it'll put it in the upper left-hand corner of your form design window. Or, I guess that would be right here. Or you can hold down on your left mouse button, drag it over and put it wherever you want to put it there. All right. They also mention, that's two of the ways. It says you can select the control on the form by clicking on it, then click on the form itself. I guess I've never done it that way. Again, what's going to happen over time? What's going to happen over time is you're going to come up with your own way of doing this, the order in which you do it, etc. You're developing, as I said before, your own style, and that's totally fine. That's the way that really and truly, that's the way that it should be. All right. So we've talked a little bit about properties and what gets set in your properties window. So when you click on a button like they show here, it brings up whatever's in the properties window changes for just that button. If I would have highlighted both buttons by drawing that or lassoing them and drawing that invisible box around them, this would change. That would allow me to set all the properties for all buttons or both buttons at one time. This, the way it is right now, since I've only selected one control, it's the properties for that one control. All right. And again, I have gone through this now. I have taught this course several times. I have had students after they take the course or even during have said, hey, you showed us how to do this and you could have also done it like this or like this. And normally, at least, I know that. But again, I'm trying to show this to you and have you, get you to where you can start building these in the most intuitive way possible. That's what I'm looking for. All right. And I guess you're the ones who decide whether or not I succeed. When we get to the end of this semester, you will be filling out a course evaluation form. It'll be totally anonymous, but you'll send it in. It doesn't get sent into me. It gets sent into Rankin. They have a person then at Rankin that takes all of that information and basically it takes all of that information and kind of coordinates it and gives me totals. You'll rank me on different things. You'll rank the course, you'll rank the book, and you'll rank the instructor. Okay. All right. So common properties, some of these we've discussed already. The name property, remember when you set the name, that's the name of the control itself. It's not the text that goes with the name. It's the name of the particular control itself. And if you want to use that property in your code, you will use it with that name. The stuff that he says here can be changed to provide a more descriptive and memorable name. That's what I tried to do. All right. You technically, what a lot of people will do is where I change the name of my labels, a lot of people won't change the name of their labels at all. They'll just keep them at label 1, label 2, etc. You can do that too. I'm going to recommend that you put in names for everything because there's something I forgot to show you that I'll show you in just a couple minutes. The text is, as it says here, it's the text that's displayed on the form or on the control. All right. The properties, I already showed you the accept button. I showed you the cancel button. I showed you the start position. You've seen those a couple times now already. All right. Other properties, I've shown you read only. We set up our tab index manually by using the tab order. There's also a tab index property you can use. Tab stop I've never used, but you can look at that. And I did show you the text align when we moved over all those labels to the right. Enabled just means something that is enabled or disabled. I can show you that in a couple minutes. When you made those text boxes read only, in essence, they were now disabled because you couldn't do anything with them. They could hold information, but you couldn't do anything with them. All right, navigation features. How to adjust the tab order. I already showed you that. How to set access keys. Let's go back and let's take a quick look at that. So I'm going to change again. Sorry, I'm going to change my sharing. So we're back again to the program. Hopefully you can all see my program on here on the screen. If you cannot, you're going to have to let me know. All right. But a lot of times what you see is like for calculate, you want to be able to do an Alt C to make the calculate work. And then the C would be underlined. For the clear, you might choose the L and do an Alt L to clear. For the exit, you might use the letter X. So let's do all those. So for calculate, I'm going to change the text on there. And right before the C in calculate, I'm going to put in an ampersand, which is hold down on the shift key and tap the number 7 above. And you can see there's now an underline there. And for my clear, I'm going to put it before the L in the word clear. And for exit, I'm going to put it before the X in the word exit. So you can see them on the screen now, but to my knowledge, when we go and run this, so I'm going to do a file save all, and when we run it, I don't think they're going to show. See, you don't see them. However, if I come in here and put a 10 and I do an Alt C, it worked. If I do an Alt L, it worked. And if I do an Alt X, it worked. So why would you even want to do that when it's not showing? All right. I very rarely use this, but a lot of times people like it and they're just used to doing Alt something like an Alt X to end the program. All right. So it can be a little nicety that you can provide for people. Again, do you have to? The answer is, of course you don't. All right. So let's see. Oh, the other thing I mentioned, I'd say to you would be enabled. So notice this button right here that says exit. I'm clicking on it. I'm going over to the enabled property, which is set to true, and I'm changing it to false. Now, it may not look any different, but watch what happens when I run the program. It's now kind of grayed out, and it doesn't work because I disabled it. So the reason that you may decide, I'm going to turn that back off, but the reason that you may decide to disable a control is if you want it to remain on the screen, but you don't want a user to be able to do anything with it. All right. So let me do another file, save all. And I'm going to run it one more time here and put in calculate. Looks like it's working just fine. All right, clear is working. Exit's working. No, exit, yes. Okay, everything's fine. So let me go back and let's finish this chapter, and then we'll almost be ready for our next break. So I'm going to again change my share to go back to the book. All right, and let's finish up the chapter. All right, I already showed you the enter and escape keys with the accept and cancel button. It says in chapter 10, you'll learn how to use the tab order. I showed it to you now because I think what I showed you using the tab order is much easier than the way they just showed you in the book. So even though they don't show it till chapter 10, I showed it to you now. All right. The property settings for the invoice total form, they show them to you right there. I may not have used the exact same names that they used, but this is how that's all been set up. All right. I provided the access keys for you as well. So how to finish your design, how to rename the files. Well, I already showed you how to rename a form. That's what they show here. You can do the same thing. If you want to rename the project, you can right mouse click on it and choose rename. If you want to rename the solution, you can right mouse click on it and choose rename. Typically, the only thing I rename after I've set it up in my project, unless I misspelled something, is the forms that I put in. All right, how to save? Yeah, I've already shown you that using the save all basically. And that's it for this chapter. All right, so before we go on, which is what we'll do in just a bit, we're going to go on into chapter 3. And notice in here, it says an introduction to coding. Now, when we first start to go through this, it's going to start by saying introduction to object-oriented programming. And I will tell you, there's a good chance you'll get confused when we go over those couple pages. Don't let it throw you at all. We don't really talk object-oriented programming in this textbook until we get to chapter 12. We are in the first section of our book. That's section 3 of the book. So we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll talk in a little bit more depth and breadth of coverage about properties, methods, and events. And then we'll actually add the code. All right. Some of the stuff that's in here, I'll show it to you, but I'll tell you, I'm going to recommend that you don't use it, because some of the stuff like adding code snippets, I would do that if I was a more experienced coder. But if as you're just learning, I wouldn't do shortcuts. I would do it the long drawn out way, because it forces you to learn how to do it that way. All right. These aren't cheats exactly, but there are other ways that you can do them. Okay. So when we come back from the break, we're going to go over this chapter. Now, there's a good chance I'll be able to finish this chapter in maybe between 10 and 10:50, or come darn close. So what we will do then is not the break I'm about to give you, but the next break. If we get to that point, what I'm going to do then is I am going to email each one of you the pretest, which you'll take tomorrow. And if we get this done by 11, I'm going to give you from 11 to 12 today to work on the pretest. In addition, I'm going to give you from 8 to 9 tomorrow morning to work on the pretest. You might get it done in 5 minutes. You might struggle to get it done in 2 hours. Everybody's different. All right. So again, what I'm going to give you your break, but the other thing I'm going to do, just so you know, because you're going to get this in just a moment, I'm going to do here a file, save all, and you can't see this stuff, I get it, but I've got a folder here that says invoice total. I'm taking this folder and I'm zipping it. There's now a zip folder called invoicetotal.zip. I am going to email each and every one of you this zipped folder during our break. So you will have a copy of the zipped folder. All right. In other words, you will have a working copy of this invoice total program. I would strongly suggest that you take the time and try to, follow along in the book and build it yourselves. All right. And, I think at least we're doing well. We will be done with chapter 3 by no later than the end of the period today. We will have the pretest part of it today, and the rest of it you'll get time tomorrow. Then I will go over the pretest. And then on Friday, we will actually have your first test. And if you understand the pretest, I'm not making this up, a lot of you will probably be able to finish the actual first test that you take in 15 minutes to a half an hour. And I'm not just saying that. All right. And if you struggle, it's fine. You literally will have till 11:59 and 59 seconds. I will be online on Thursday, the regular time. I will spend the first 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 15 at the most, going over the test with you and asking if there's any questions and showing you how to create the test, how to save the test, etc. I will do that with you. All right. And then I'm going to let you go, and I will still be online. And if you have questions, you can break in through Teams, or if it's something where you're like, I don't really get what you want, then send me an email. So let's take a break. It's 9:50. We'll start back up again at 10 o'clock. I will see you then.